All right, we're live. Hi. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Thank you so much for joining me. I know I've already thanked you like a million times, but I really, really, really appreciate you coming on to my show, Paranormal Brew. Um,
Sure. It's my pleasure. Thanks for asking me. It's nice to come on the show.
yeah. So I saw you on a flyer of an event with a friend of mine, Kelly Miller. I can't remember what event it was, but you were one of the guests that was going to be where she was at.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and that's where I saw it. I was like, what is this about? I was like, wow, this is interesting. Um,
Right.
because it's not every day that you have somebody in your profession, that is into the paranormal side of things. So, um, I'm going to shut up. I just really would like it,
You're doing good. You got
um,
it. You got
for
this.
you to just introduce yourself. How did you get from A to B, and to how you're here now? And doing
Sure.
events and stuff. I think this is awesome.
Sure. So let me start with the more recent stuff. So like you mentioned, there's not a lot of physicians that are paranormal investigating like I do. So that was where I kind of saw an area where I could, get out there and share more information and kind of talk about that. I had been on a team before, Twisted Paranormal Society, and we did our typical ghost investigating kind of things and had a lot of good experiences. And I thought it'd be kind of cool to be able to branch out and maybe talk more about what it's like to be a physician that investigates. So it's kind of how I got to be the Haunted M.D. and where I've been for the last couple of years. Jumping way back when. So what got me interested in paranormal is I had things happen to me all my life from the time I was a kid until now, and all kind of interesting things. In fact, I was talking to my mom the other day. I go, Mom, you remember us talking about all that stuff when I was a kid? She goes, oh yeah, I remember all that stuff. So what I mean by all that is, when I was little, some of the earliest paranormal memories I have is I remember kind of seeing this light figure. It was like the size of a kid. It would kind of peek around the corner with its head, and you could kind of see the shoulders. Could never see any face. It was kind of like a head, neck, shoulders, body, legs. Light. It wasn't bright to the point where you couldn't look at it, but it was like it kind of just glowed, And I would a lot of times see it peek around a corner. Sometimes see it run across the living room. That went on for about a year or so. I think I was around like 5, 6-ish. But I remember telling my mom, "Hey, there's this thing peeking around the corner at me," and my mom's like, "What? Oh, that's just your guardian angel, guys." She kind of like was able to kind of roll with it. Reason why I kind of tell all that is my family was pretty open to paranormal. We used to always sit around and talk about ghosts. Even now, like I said, I talked to my mom. I think it was what day was that? Was it? It must have been Friday, Saturday, somewhere Saturday or Sunday. I talked to my mom. We started talking about ghost stuff again. So that's the kind of the relationship we've always had is being very open about paranormal and stuff. Now, I always tell people that my mom was more spiritual and kind of more spiritual, or maybe not spiritual, but more religious. Like she was really big on kind of making sure that we, knew about God and Jesus and angels and all that. And
Sure.
we used to always talk about angels and all those things, the prophecies. We used to talk about the end times. This was back in the 70s, right? This is like back in early 70s. We talked about the end times and all this stuff. And then my dad, he was a blue collar steelworker guy, and he was into UFOs and Bigfoot and ghosts and kind of all those things. He believes in God, but he wasn't like a church guy. So it was kind of, my mom was kind of balanced out, my dad's side of things. And but the reason why I tell you all that is, we had a very open kind of family where we would often sit and talk about, paranormal things. In fact, one of the things that kind of went on throughout my life as a kid and into a teenager was we used to think my dad's ghost. So my grandpa, my father's side, we used to think he would come visit because I was born in 1969. So he died right before I was born. So I never really knew him, but he used to grow roses. He was really big on growing roses. So we would get these. In fact, me and my mom talked about this just the other day. We're like, you remember that roses smell? My mom's, oh yeah. We would get this smell of roses come out of nowhere, and it would just go away. And we didn't have those kind of things in our house, and we didn't have a deodorizer kind of thing going on. So it would just kind of come and go throughout my life. And I remember eventually I was probably 6th grade, 7th grade, somewhere around there. We decided to do like this mini seance, if you would believe it. We sat around the kitchen table. It was my mom, my dad, and my 2 sisters. I'm the oldest. And we all sat around with this candle and we're like, Grandpa Molnar, if that's you, can you give us a sign? So anyways, the reason I tell you all that is that's kind of why I'm really open to it. So, all my life I wanted to be a physician, went to college, had all, everywhere I went, I kind of had strange things happen. And then finally got to medical school, became a doc, and still had things happen. And then kind of what got me into investigating was, I remember early 2000s, I seen the shows, Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, Haunted, what is it, Most Haunted out of England, Paranormal State. I was like, oh my God, what? And I was immediately hooked because these guys were catching evidence of things I had experienced all my life. So then I really didn't start investigating then. That was around 2000s. And then I moved from Ohio. I'm from Ohio, moved to Virginia, 2009. And then around 2011-ish, 12-ish, I was working night shift, and one of the nurses came back, and she's like, hey, we just investigated St. Albans down in Radford. And it's, St. Albans, I don't know if you know it, it's been one of the real popular places for paranormal. A lot of the shows have been there. I think like all of them, like Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, the Rave Chasers, Tennessee Rave Chasers. So she had came back and said she had been there. I'm like, what? How'd you do that? And she goes, oh, this team here in town, Twisted Paranormal Society, and they're looking for somebody. They're looking for people. So I met them and joined them around 2012. And then I was with them until about 2018, 2019, when I started my Haunted M.D thing. Then I've kind of branched off and kind of work with a lot of different teams, and I do my post and all that kind of stuff, and do talks and lectures, etc.
And you have a YouTube too, as well, right?
Yeah. So I have so if you're interested in what I do, the original is my Facebook page, Haunted M.D on Facebook. That goes back all the way to May of 2018, and that's when I started the whole Haunted M.D thing. And so I did my Facebook first, YouTube, Don Molnar Haunted M.D, and then Instagram I just started in the last year or so. But if you go way back on my Facebook page, I try to mix it up. I would find interesting stuff about parapsychology, like, psychic and ESP. I've talked about the pineal gland. I've talked about history of ghosts. I post my evidence that I catch. So I try to really kind of mix it up with a lot of interesting topics. So some of it's paranormal. Some of it I just talk about medical stuff. Like one of the posts I did was, what do we do when somebody dies? How do we pronounce them dead? So I try to, whatever kind of hits me that I think somebody will be interested in, I put it on the Facebook page. So.
Right. I think it is really, it's such an awesome combination, right? I mean,
yeah.
Growing up in such a spiritual household, how did you decide, hey, I want to be a doctor? Like a doctor's so scientific,
yeah.
So, and I'm saying the two are good together, you know what I mean? But, that is a passion of yours. Obviously you wouldn't have went through medical school if you didn't want to be a doctor. And then, so, I think it's awesome, the household that you grew up in, how everybody was so open about it, and everybody had their own thing. I think that's great. Because a lot of times you don't hear about that kind of stuff. It's, I grew up in a religious household, but, there was no such thing as that, like it's frowned upon a little bit. And so what made you decide, doctor?
So the doctor thing, kind of knew from an early age. What fascinated me was kind of tracking back to when I was a kid again. I remember going to the doctor, and I can't remember, it was a Dr. Novello. He's obviously probably passed on by now, but I remember have to go to the doctor for whatever, and he was able to kind of like hear the story and put it together. And I remember all the little things he had in his office, and I thought that was cool. So I thought it was neat that how can this person figure out what's wrong with me and then give me something like, a shot in the butt. Back then it was a shot in the butt for antibiotics, right? So everyone got a shot in the butt. And so I remember that, and I thought that was really cool that he could diagnose those things. And each time I went to the doctor, it just kind of fascinated me. Then the other thing that kind of got me into it, kind of tracking back to my mom again, is my mom had one of those their health encyclopedias, family health encyclopedias, that you can kind of look up stuff about different ailments. And then in the middle of it, though, it had like the overlays of the body. It was like the skeleton, and you could lay the muscles, and you could lay the organs. It was like old school stuff back in the 70s. So I remember like being so fascinated by that. I'm like, the human body anatomy, and then the doctor stuff. And then pretty much ever since then, I just kind of, I was determined to kind of be a doc. Although before I got into college, or before I got to medical school there, I had thought about different things, like maybe doing like biochemistry, something science, usually chemistry or chemical engineering, stuff like that. So, but in the back of my mind, I always wanted to be a doc and all that. So
So, and then, so you're saying that you were having, so when was your first experience with the paranormal? What made you, was it just being brought up in that environment and you kind of just, wanted to explore on your own, or did you have an experience and decided, hey, this is what I want to get into?
Well, I think, as a kid, like I said, I saw that the white
Right.
figure, and then the other things I'd have happen to me was I'd hear my name called from a distance, and I would swear it was my dad. So I'd be upstairs playing, and this is all around the same time in that same particular house. We switched houses probably about 4 or 5 times before I was 18. In this particular house, or it was a duplex at the time, all this stuff happened. So I don't know if there was something, looking back at it now from a perspective where I'm at now, I kind of wonder if that house just didn't have something to it, of that particular place where we lived. Although stuff seemed to follow me around, but a lot of stuff seemed to happen in that place. I would hear my name called, and it sounded just like my dad called me. I'd run downstairs, and they would look at me really confused. My mom and dad like, "What?" I'm like, "You called me." They're like, "No, we didn't call you." So that would happen a lot, and then I would hear footsteps. I'd see shadows. I even saw my mom's doppelganger. That's it. You want me to tell you that story real quick?
Yeah, please.
I'll try and make it fast so we don't waste too much time on it. But so around the same time period, I was outside playing. Back then you played outside, sun up to sundown. So the sun was going down. I wanted to come in the house. I was at the back door. It was one of those doors with the windows on the door. And I knocked on the door, and the curtains part, and my mom's standing there, or at least what I thought was my mom. And she's got this evil smile on her face, and she wouldn't open the door. And she just stood there with us like this evil smile. And I started crying. I'm like, "Let me in the house," And then the curtains, she kind of disappeared, and the curtains went back together. So I ran around to the front door. It was locked. Came back to the back door, started banging on the back door again. This time my mom comes to the door, and she opens it, and she's like, "What in the world?" She goes, "I was upstairs in the bathroom. That's why I couldn't get down here. What's wrong?" And I'm like, "Well, you were standing there like smiling. You wouldn't open the door." She's like, "What are you talking about?" So that was crazy.
Wow, that is crazy.
It looked like my mom, but the only thing she just had this like big evil kind of smile on her face,
Yeah.
But that was the kind of crap that happened to me when I was a kid. So, when I realized that you can investigate these things, that's where it kind of got me into joining a team. I can tell you all kinds of experiences I had. Growing up in college, I lived in some houses that were spooky. Before I moved to Virginia, I had a crazy experience happen to me. But it kind of seems like either the ghosts follow me or they're attracted to me. In fact, when I was on my old team, they used to call me a ghost magnet. They're like, "You're a ghost magnet,
man." Well, so there is a question. I'm going to pop it up. And this is from Jocelyn. She said, "Most MDs I know are science-based. I find this intriguing. Do you ever have to debate with your colleagues?"
No, so it's a great question. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I'm science. I work today, and I got to use all that stuff to fix people, and but I'm open-minded to it. But I'm always skeptical. I did an investigation the other day on a battlefield here in Virginia, and there was stuff that happened, but I was always kind of are we sure? So I got to really convince myself. But going back to the colleague thing, so far I haven't got any bad things from anybody. In fact, most people will say, "Hey, I saw you doing this, or I saw you doing that. I got this story for you." Even people that I think are pretty strict doctors, like some people you can tell are real like type A, white coat's buttoned up, and they're like real, short, good haircut, all that kind of stuff. They'll come up and be, "Hey man, you got to hear the story." So I think a lot of doctors have stories, but they don't show them, or they don't share them publicly, or they have them and kind of dismiss them. But probably 95% of the time, most of my colleagues are curious. In fact, some of them want to go out with me sometimes and do investigations. So yeah, I haven't really got any frowned upon for doing this. In fact, most people are interested in it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. I used to work for a family doctor, and I used to try to, he was open to it, but he wanted to, he wasn't into the Casper stuff. And I don't know what his motivation was behind it, but he'd always be like, "Oh no, I want to see a demon. I want to pull the Ouija board out." Da, da, da. So I don't know if he was, and I'm like, "We're not doing that."
No.
I'm like, "We are not doing that." So that was one of the questions I was going to ask you. So it was interesting that she brought it up. And parapsychology, So you have an advantage. Like, don't you think that maybe you could teach some sort of, I don't know what it would be. I guess maybe not a class, but don't they have some sort of, or some colleges, I feel like they have like paranormal type classes that people can join. And
Yeah, that's actually a good point I was going to mention. So University of Virginia, they actually have the Division of Perceptual Studies, and there's a mixture of MDs and PhDs that are basically they're doing research. They do near-death experiences, children with previous lives, deathbed visions. They do the out-of-body experiences. Like, I know one thing they're researching is people who do extreme yoga are able to kind of have this out-of-body experience when they're like yoga master kind of folks. So they're looking at that. They look at mediumship. They have a advanced lab. I haven't seen any of this, but just reading about it. They have a lab where they have EEGs. They can hook you to an MRIs and kind of study like the brain of a medium versus the brain of somebody who doesn't have medium abilities. So that program's going on at UVA. I'm not associated with them at all, but there's that program. University of Arizona has a program with Gary Schwartz. I think he's a PhD guy, but he studies consciousness and all that kind of stuff also. And then there used to be a bunch of programs like Duke and Harvard and even have you heard of the Stargate program? It was a CIA program for remote viewing. It was I'm trying to think, Stanford. It was a college. It started out as a college-sponsored program, but the government ended up getting a hold of it to do remote viewing for the CIA. In fact, Stranger Things. Do you ever see the show Stranger Things?
Yeah,
that show is based on that idea from the Stargate of remote viewing. Of course, they didn't have all the other stuff happen, but it was the idea of remote viewing and stuff. So
that's interesting. So they're actually doing now. Are they? It's just for researching this class.
So you're talking about the Division of Perceptual Studies, UVA?
Yeah, like because you're saying that they're studying the brains of somebody that's a medium.
Yeah.
As opposed to.
So they're coming at it. They're trying to understand like psychic phenomena and whether our souls survive by coming at it from like a scientific approach. So with the mediumship, they're looking at do psychic abilities truly exist? With the other part of it, Dr. Tucker, actually, he has a new book out now. Bruce Bryson, I'm sorry. Dr. Bruce Bryson has a book out now about near-death experiences, but they've actually studied a ton of near-death experiences. And if you go on their site, you can read all about it. And they talk about, near-death experience being an evidence that our consciousness survives. In parapsychology programs, they don't talk so much about the soul. They call it more consciousness, the part of us that's not our bodies or any other part of us that survives. So they look at near-death experiences. Jim Tucker, looks at reincarnation, children with previous lives, where these kids, young kids tell these amazing stories that they should never know that suggest that they have been reincarnated. So they're coming at it from a different angle of what we do as paranormal investigators. We're trying to find the ghost in the location. They come at it from the idea of understanding, does the consciousness survive after the body dies and that kind of thing. So what they're researching is psi phenomena and does the consciousness or soul survive after we die at the Division of Perceptual Studies. And these other programs too, like Arizona and I don't know if the Rhine Institute, I think the Rhine Institute, it was started out there down by Duke and all this. There's some programs here. And then also over like in Europe, Edinburgh, and there's some programs overseas too that are looking at does our soul survive and is there psychic abilities and all that.
What do you think?
I think it does. I'm not sure how to make sense of it. I'm not sure where it goes and what it does, but when you read about near-death experiences and deathbed visions and reincarnation, and then from my experience as a paranormal investigator, and then also as growing up, there's definitely something out there that we can't see that seems to exist after, without a body kind of thing. So
yeah,
just like, so if you look at it, from a parapsychology standpoint, that the consciousness survives or the soul survives, and it translates out that what we're experiencing at haunted locations is a soul or a consciousness that's still there for whatever reason. So,
right. Have you ever now in a hospital? Right? Have you ever worked in a hospital?
Oh yeah, I work in a hospital now. I work in a small satellite hospital now.
Yeah. So working in a hospital, I'm sure and where you work, people pass away, and I mean, do you guys have that? I know I've been in the medical field since I was like 18, right? So I started out in a nursing home, and that was the first time I heard that, where people open up the windows
Yeah.
in a hospital or a
Yeah.
nursing home. They'll open up the windows, and I don't know if it goes out beyond hospitals or nursing homes, but that's what we do. I mean, is that something? Have you ever experienced something like maybe right after somebody passed away or
Oh
something?
yeah. Well, even where I could tell you an interesting story last night. So the place where I work has a ton of activity. It's a small satellite branch of the main hospital. We kind of do. We do. What do you do? What do you do in healthcare? Are you?
Yeah. Well, right now I'm working for a cardiac surgeon. But back then I mean, I've been through it. I've been through a nursing home for 3 years, and then I was a manager for a family practice for 15 years. And
oh wow, okay,
cool. Yeah. So I've been in it for a long time.
So where I work, it's called a long-term LTAC. It's a long-term acute care hospital. So we end up taking people still on the vents or with wounds, real bad wounds. So we're still doing acute care, but we're doing it, usually our average length of stay is about 30 days or so. So that's what I work at. So we have it's a smaller satellite hospital that takes the long-term acute patients. We also have a hospice unit as part of our building too. So I think that fuels some of the energy. Anyways, since I've been there, crazy stuff happens. In our office area, actually, if you on my Facebook page, I've posted some clips of evidence. Our office, I'm a hospital-based doctor, a hospitalist. I don't do any outpatient stuff. So our office is kind of where we go in the morning and spend the day kind of set up. We have, put our stuff down, and we have, TV in there, and there's sleeping areas and showers and stuff. In fact, I worked overnight last night, and sometimes I'll sneak stuff in and investigate. You're not officially supposed to investigate in there, but
I would do the same thing.
yeah. So much crazy stuff happens. But last night I was so tired. I'm like, I'm just going to go to sleep. So I went to sleep kind of early, and then my pager went off, so I had to answer a page. And when I answered the page, it sounded like I had the door closed. So there's a main part of the office, and I had the bedroom. I was in one of the bed areas with the shower area. I had the door closed, and it sounded like somebody was trying to turn the door knob to get into the room. So I immediately opened that door because I thought, what the heck? I thought maybe the doctors came back late to do something. It never happens when anybody comes back in there, but there was nobody there. But it wasn't like a little like pressure change on the door. It was kind of like the doorknob rattled, which it never does. It never does that. So I'm like, oh man, I wish I had some equipment, but so that was interesting. But the reason why I tell you that story is our office, I've actually posted some clips of the lights turn on by themselves and the paper towel dispenser runs by itself. And even all my doctor's friends that work there, they're like, this office is haunted. And even a guy who's like really religious and he's really skeptical, he's like, man, this office is haunted. He goes, the other night I started saying some prayers. I'm like, dear Jesus, get this stuff out of here. So our office is haunted. But I definitely have experiences in the hospital. And I think part of what fuels it now is we have a hospice unit down right. It's on the same floor as our office, but down the hallway. But I've also had some interesting experience while taking care of some patients. You want to hear those things or?
Yeah, but I want to ask you something before it slips my mind. I have ADD, so it's like I'll forget it and I'll be so mad. So, forgot. All right, go ahead. Start yours and then I'll so
go ahead.
Timeline wise, you were already an MD when you joined the paranormal group? Yeah.
So I've been out of training since 2001. So I went to medical school. What was it, 94 to 98. Then I did my residency in internal medicine. So medical school 94, 98, 98 to 2001. I did my residency. I've been out of training as a MD since 2001. And then I was originally in Ohio until about 2009 when I moved to Virginia for family reasons. All my family is mostly in Ohio, but I moved out here for my son, who was a lot younger. He's like 19 now. But I started out, just to give you a little bit of history. So in internal medicine, I started out doing office and hospital. About 4 or 5 years into it, I'm like, I just didn't like the office at all. I loved the patients, but I didn't like the pace. Every 15 minutes, why are you 2 hours behind? I hated that whole feeling.
Yes.
So I changed into being a hospital-based doctor, which is a hospitalist. And so that way you have a little more control over your time. You got to still work fast if you're busy, but you can kind of take breaks and things like that.
Yeah.
So I've been a hospitalist probably since about 2005, 2006. And then And then I moved to Virginia, and I worked at one place called Augusta Health over in Fishersville. And then now I work where I work now since about 2014. So, but that's, yeah. So when I joined the team, I had been a doc for about 10, 12 years, something like that. So, yeah.
Wow. They were probably like, this is cool.
Yeah. We had a good time. Yeah. Yeah.
I've been a part of groups where, it's always cool when you have, I don't know, a respected profession like yours, everybody respects doctors and, they're smart and, very, in tune with, what's going on, very, grounded, if you will.
Right.
And then you had we had a couple police officers, or you have, people like that where you're like, okay, this is, to me, it really helps the research of what we do. You know what I mean? When you have more people that are, I was saying this last night about, like when, if somebody says, oh yeah, I saw UFO, you're like, okay. But then when you hear, the, military, when military say, I see this unidentified something out here, you tend to believe that a little bit more, just because, they're military or trained for that stuff. So
yeah. Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because one of the things I was hoping to do with Haunted M.D. was try to bring more credibility to it, to what I'm investigating, because, it's kind of like people, there's good things and bad things, but a lot of skeptics are like, mumbo jumbo. So I wanted to kind of say, hey, as a physician, I've had these experiences and I believe, and, I've had this evidence and that evidence. And, even the other day we were out doing that battlefield and crazy things happen, so it's like, I wanted to kind of bring some credibility to it. And, ultimately somehow kind of bring the academic together, the parapsychology folks with paranormal investigating folks. Because, the paranormal or the parapsychology folks kind of frown upon ghost hunting. And then a lot of ghost hunting folks don't really know about the parapsychology side of things. So it'd be nice to somehow kind of bring those groups of people together, or at least bring those schools of thought together. So,
well, not knowing any better, I used to think that the, ghost hunting and all this other stuff, I thought parapsychology had something to do with that for some reason. You know what I mean? So I just automatically thought that,
Yeah.
And it really, it is, but it isn't, and
well, in folks of parapsychology, they consider ghost experiences, but what they call it is apparitional experiences. Instead of saying ghost experiences, they're like apparitional, and they try to, pick that apart as, what are you really seeing? Is it hallucinations, or is it whatever? And, so they do look at it, but they kind of, they kind of frown upon the ghost hunting type stuff.
Yeah. So, but don't they need that for research though?
You would think, yeah. Like I said, it's interesting to me doing both sides of the coin, or knowing about both sides of the coin, because it seems like as an MD, if I was doing academic studies, I'd be really interested, because there's so much evidence out there there's so much stuff that's happening that you think you'd want to experience that and try to explain it either as something normal or not. But yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know if it's because of the ghost huntings on TV so much, and it kind of more of an entertainment thing. I think if it wasn't so much
mainstream,
people, they might kind of wrap their heads around it more.
Yeah, I do think that in the beginning, you had mentioned, ghost hunters, you know what I mean? Like they seem to be the most level-headed, grounded. Yeah, granted, It still is TV and entertainment, but it was as close to what, we do and how we handle things in cases and how it really is. You know what I mean? We're not always going to get something. We're not always going to, and then as time went on, it's like people just wanted to see more and more of the negative not drama, but negative side of stuff. And then that kind of blew up. And then, now, thank God, you do have Ghost Hunters came back and Ghost Nation, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like the saving grace there, but the shows really have a lot of the shows, I will say, have really, like you said, it did put a little bit of a, I don't know, little damper on it or something, So
about Ghost Hunters, that used to be one of my favorite shows back in the day. And I thought the power, like you said, the power to the show was they would go in and sometimes, or a lot of times, not find anything. And I thought that really gave it a lot of credibility, but I know, eventually they had to kind of catch up with the Ghost Adventure guys and stuff, and kind of have this wow factor. But that was one of to me, the early seasons of that show, not finding something really, I thought, gave credibility, or finding a natural reason for people's experiences, because I think now, everybody thinks you're going to have something happen everywhere you go. In fact, I help out with a lot of public events. And, people come to these public events to, they're thinking, the ghost should start right away. It's like,
I know.
I find myself a lot of times telling people like, hey, nothing may happen. There's sometimes you sit for hours in a location, or maybe even the whole night. I've had places where I've gone and not had anything happen. So you got to kind of explain that to people, but they don't, they want, they paid money. They want something to happen. So it's a little bit tricky sometimes.
It is. Yeah. You have to really, I don't know. You can even go to, I go to Gettysburg a lot.
I love Gettysburg. Yeah.
Yeah. I go probably, 12 to 15 times a year. I go to Gettysburg, and I was going there before I was into the paranormal stuff. It just so happens that, now it's like I go there and it's, that's part of it,
Right.
And, it definitely is. Like, sometimes I can go there. You go to like places where people say are like the most haunted. I stayed in one of the most haunted rooms at the Farnsworth, and nothing happened. Nothing happened at all. They have like all these people that always say that stuff always happens, and nothing happened for me that night. And I was like, bummer. Now So.
Yeah. How long have you been doing this? How long have you been doing stuff?
Since like about 2012, I've been into the paranormal stuff.
We got the same length, yeah.
Yeah, I started the brew with another friend in 2017 because of all the shows and where they were going and where they were headed. I'm like, no, this isn't how it is, because we also do private cases, and a lot of private cases started coming after the show started because people were like, something tried pushing me down the steps. And I'm like, okay, well, let's talk about that. Because something you don't see, if they wanted to push you down the steps, it would have pushed you down the steps.
Yeah.
Right. So you would, it was more to like educate, that, okay. And bring people on that do the same thing that, that I respect peers and this and that, to show that, this is really how it is. That's entertainment. Yeah. It's not
true. It's true. It's true.
So it's blossomed since then. And, but I did want to ask you too, before, the personal experiences with the patients, because that's interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I have a lot of questions there, especially being in the medical field, the past lives with the children. So do people do they just have people that, bring their children to the schools, or to, you know what I mean? Like, is that a lot? Do they have a lot of research on that?
Yeah, so now so this is all just from what I kind of read and see. Did you happen to see a good show to watch on this is Surviving Death on Netflix? Did you get to see that miniseries? No. If you watch that, they actually feature Dr. Greisen, or Dr. Greisen and Dr. Tucker. I work today. My head's like, what?
I know, me too.
They actually have Dr. Bruce Greisen on there for near-death experiences. And at the end, I think it's 6 episodes altogether. At the last episode, they finish off with Dr. Tucker, who talks about children with previous lives. But what happens is people look them up. Like parents will have kids that are having experiences, and they'll start looking for, well, what's going on with this? And then they'll find Dr. Tucker. When it comes to near-death experiences, they'll do the same thing, start looking, what is this? And then Dr. Greisen they'll find Dr. Greisen, or Dr. Greisen may look for those folks too. So basically, usually the patient or the person experiencing will seek them out, and but that Surviving Death it shows it really well. But with the children with previous lives, it's pretty wild. So the Division of Perceptual Studies was started by Dr. Ian Stevenson, like in the 1960s. He was a psychiatrist who was interested in paranormal and survival consciousness, and his area of expertise was the children with previous lives, because one of the things you can do with children with previous lives is you can kind of verify their stuff. So they'll tell you, like, I used to live at such and such street, and I had this friend and that friend, or I used to play at this playground. And you're able to verify the certain facts the kid's telling you. And these kids are so young and they haven't been around, and there's no way they should know the things they know. and
That's
you're able to
crazy.
verify. And if you watch that Surviving Death show on Netflix, there's actually Dr. Tucker goes to a kid's house and he's able to point out 5 things in pictures that he shouldn't even know about, that he knows only because he was alive before. So they kind of, so that's pretty cool stuff. And then the thing about the reincarnation or the previous lives is eventually as you get older, for whatever reason, it seems like you lose the memories. So as you get to be like a teenager, and they even show this in that show, as you get to be a teenager, you end up kind of forgetting a lot of it. So there's something about being a kid, just like I was talking to a lady today at work, and she was saying that her son is 3 years old and he like seems like he's talking to something and seeing things. So there's something about being a kid where you're more open to these paranormal things that happen, like
Absolutely.
spirits or having these memories of previous life. So, but yeah, so it's pretty cool stuff. And there's lots of stuff online about it. I think there might be stuff on YouTube if you look up Division of Perceptual Studies. They have, I think there's different lectures they've done, and they talk about different stories.
That's cool. And then on your speaking of YouTube, on your YouTube channel, when you do your investigations, do you ever do like live investigations on your YouTube channel, or, is it more lectures? Is it more, stuff like that?
Well, so I mix it up. I actually recently posted a few clips up there on YouTube and my Haunted M.D. We went to the Newmarket Battlefield, Newmarket Battlefield in Newmarket, Virginia. It was one of the battles of Civil War, and we went up there. We did a haunted tour, or not a haunted tour. We did a historical tour, but just happened to have some equipment with us, So we ended up catching some interesting things. So I posted some clips on like all 3 of my social media. So I post evidence. I try to keep my videos short because I know for me, I often don't have time or sometimes the patience to watch like a 50-minute clip. So I try to keep things concise, although I've thought about doing a little longer videos. But on my YouTube or my Facebook, I do a mixture of evidence. Early on with my Facebook, I did like clips about how do you do a K2 session, how do you use the SLS camera. I talk about different, motion detectors, things like that. So I used to do some of that educational stuff. So if you're interested in that, it's on it's on my YouTube and my Facebook page. But yeah, mix it up.
That's cool.
I try to keep it concise.
Cool.
Yeah.
What are the so somebody had asked about your colleagues, but what about, I'm sure you have like nurses that work for you and then patients and stuff like that. Are they more, are they more interested in it? Are they like, oh, cool, we have this like cool, I would be like, I got this cool ass doctor working at my hospital.
Yeah, they like it. Well, I find that the nurses are definitely more open than doctors about talking about it in general. Doctors will just kind of pull me aside and say, hey, man, I got this story. Where nurses like, hey, Dr. Molnar, you got to hear what happened to me. And in fact, even today, awesome. So I'll tell you today, just real quickly. So one of our unit clerks, she was telling me about where she lives now. Her son, I mentioned, like 2 or 3 years old, is experiencing like, he seems to be talking to something that's not there. And then at nighttime, she hears like he's running around in the bedroom, and she goes to check on him, and he's in his bed. And then what'd she tell me? She said there was some doors that she had left open that were closed, and something was locked that shouldn't have been locked. And then, so I actually had talked to her. I'm like, well, this is what you can try to do, and if you want, I can come do an investigation for you. But so yeah, so people are real open to it. They come up to me and talk to me about it. The nurses definitely are, like I said, are way more open about it. But yeah, as soon as somebody has something paranormal, they're coming to me and telling me about it. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, so I think it's pretty cool. In fact, so to kind of mention that, I do small investigations. It's me, or it's either me by myself or me and my girlfriend will do it. So I can do small investigations. So I do that. I tend to do a lot of consulting almost. Mm-hmm. I work with a lot of teams, like on that battlefield, Newmarket. I was working with a team called Lunar Paranormal. And then I'm going to Hinsdale House this weekend.
Oh, that ought to be interesting.
Yes, and actually, I gotta get stuff ready tonight. I'm gonna head out tomorrow afternoon, and then we're gonna be there Friday, Saturday, come back Sunday. But I'm going out with a team called Spirits Guide Paranormal. So yeah, one of the nice things about kind of being, I'm almost like a freelance guy. I can kind of, so I work with, exactly. So it's kind of fun to do that, and it's also cool to see like different styles and techniques of the different teams and all
Absolutely. That. Yeah, that's awesome. Ever going to write a book?
So I am working on one. I started one.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I had a great start. I had an amazing start, and then I kind of fizzled out. So, but after I've done a bunch of these podcasts recently. It's kind of got me fired up again because I got to probably follow through with what I'm saying, what I'm talking about. So yeah, I did start a book, and it was going to kind of be, maybe similar to like a, expanded podcast, talk about my childhood and everything. And like the first half or so, then talk about being a physician and what does people in science think about, what I do. And then also talk about some of the science of paranormal or parapsychology and things like that. So yeah, so I'm working on it.
Yeah, I mean, you could write about so many different things,
Yeah.
especially now consulting with different groups and seeing how different groups, investigate what they do. I mean, have you ever gone on something with a group and you don't have to, mention any names, but where you were uncomfortable, like you knew they were doing something wrong, or you felt like it was not right, and you kind of,
So
had to step
far,
in?
no. So far, the teams around here, I live in Charlottesville now, so the teams in like Central Virginia and all that, and over towards Richmond, they're all great people. I really can't think of anybody that I felt like, this isn't right. Some teams are more organized than other teams, but for the most part, I think people try to be true to what they're doing. I even had one team I worked with; they were starting fresh, and they wanted me to kind of help them out. So I think they ended up kind of pausing for a little while, but I actually went out and tried to tell them, or share whatever the experience I've had and try to show them how to do things. And that was kind of cool. No, I think everybody around here is pretty, pretty good and pretty ethical. And you don't see like, anybody trying to do funny stuff or anything like that. The interesting thing that I do see, and I don't mean this negatively at all, is there's a lot of politics, right?
Yeah.
I'm better than you, you're better than me. And,
Oh,
things like that. But it's just it's human nature, right? You're going to have it in anything. So I see some of that sometimes. It's kind of curious, but
yeah.
I
mean, I think that's why it's nice to be by yourself, and just doing your own thing. And, like for me, I help out a lot of, different, like I'll help out at Fort Mifflin. I help out at Selma Mansion. I help out at Pennhurst.
Oh, wow.
I help out in Gettysburg with stuff. So I kind of just do my own thing.
I agree.
And I have people that I work. So if a private case comes my way, I have people I work with. I'll call them up and say, hey, listen, this private case came my way. You guys want to do it? And, I mean, you have to have your team that you trust to go do stuff with like that. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
So now you are, I want to hear about the patient. You said the patient experience.
This is probably the coolest thing. I've shared this before too. And, basically, I mean, you probably know this about code blues when somebody stops, their heart stops and all that kind of stuff. So we had a patient on dialysis. This was about 2 or 3 years ago. And it was actually my patient. And so heart's, blood pressure dropped, the heart stopped, they stopped breathing. So they call it code blue. Code blue, just kind of explain for everybody, the doctor's kind of in charge. So especially if it's your patient, and usually you stand at the foot of the bed and you kind of tell people, you do compressions, you do meds, you do the airway, if you got to put a tube in and all those kind of things. So, so I was standing at the foot of the bed. We were working on this patient about 12, 15 minutes into it. And, I was starting to wonder if we're going to have to call it because we just weren't getting it back. Usually, with code blues, usually about 20, 25 minutes, you do several rounds of, we give medication, CPR, et cetera. And so after, so many rounds of medications in about 25, 30 minutes or so, if you're not getting some kind of something back, then usually you're going to call it depending on what's going on.
Which I'm surprised it goes that long.
Yeah, well, some people call it sooner. I think I tend to go a little bit longer, but it depends. If you walk in and somebody's they've been dead for a little bit, it's probably call it quicker than
right.
If you saw somebody go down, right? If you saw him go out, you're gonna probably
of course.
give it more of a try. Well, anyway, so this guy, 15 mintes in, all of a sudden, I had my back to the wall. There was like a cabinet. There wasn't any heating vents above me or anything like that. And all of a sudden, I felt this wind and like electricity breeze go kind of around me and through me towards the patient. And all of a sudden, after that breeze kind of went through me, we started getting a pulse back. So we got a electrical activity, got a pulse, and then slowly he came around, and then we ended up shipping him over to the main hospital. Anytime something like that happens at our place, we're not really equipped. We're small. We can do the code, and then we call the ambulance and send him over to the main hospital. So I didn't get a chance to follow up on him, but to me, with my skepticism and all that, it felt like his soul ran through me, or past me. And what it makes me think about is when you read about near-death experiences and hear about them, people talk about, they're having this whole experience and then they either have a choice to go back or they're told to go back. And when they go back to their bodies, it's usually like a rush back into their bodies. And that's all I can think of when I think about this feeling I had with this patient, is that it felt like he was rushing back into his body, and then, ma'am, we got him back. So,
Did you share your experience with him?
No, he went over to the main hospital. And I didn't follow up on it. But I think in the future I'll try to follow up on these a little bit more. Now, I did have another kind of interesting one, although I'm always a little skeptical about this one. So it was another code situation. Unfortunately, this person ended up dying. But we were able to so we worked on him for about 30 minutes. And the reason we had worked on him because we actually saw him go out. And so we tried to get him back, and we knew his wife was nearby. So we had called his wife, she had just been there. And can you come back? Because he's not doing well. So she came back, and we kind of kept doing CPR until she could come in the room. And then we told her we had to call it. So we ended up calling it, and then she was really tearful, and I really felt bad. It was my patient, and but I had this amazing sense, so I felt bad. She was crying, but I almost felt this was something I didn't hear a voice, but I felt this inside of me that I felt the guy was saying to me, "Hey, it's okay. I was ready to go." In fact, it was curious that it all happened right after his wife left, because he had been sick for a long time. Actually, what made it hard was he was a younger guy, but he had been sick for so long, and I think he just didn't want to pass in front of his wife. Yeah, because it was really weird how it all happened. But anyway, so I had this amazing sixth sense about me that he was saying, "Hey, it's okay, man. I was tired of being sick."
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't know. That's one of these things I don't know. I just felt that. So, but anyways, his wife had called me a couple of times afterwards, and and she was just having a really hard time with everything. And I finally told her, I think it was the third time she called, I said, "Hey," so I don't know how you feel about this, but I'm a paranormal guy. I do stuff like this. I believe in, that we survive death. And I said, "I want you to know that when I was in your room with your husband and you after he died, that I felt this amazing sense that he was trying to tell me that that things were okay." So when I told her that, I think it gave her a peace of mind. Like, she finally was able to say, she started crying, and she's like, do you really think that was him? And I said, "I don't know, but I'm telling you that I felt this sense that there was this, that he was saying he's okay and he just wanted to go." And
see that's awesome, because even though you were unable to, and I'm not saying this like you were unable. I mean, it's
no, yeah,
fate, right? I mean, it wasn't you. It wasn't able. But
no, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, so he passed, but however, still, you're a doctor because you want to help people, and save lives and do this and that. So, in a sense, you're still helping and somebody's life by relaying these messages. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like mediumship a little bit.
Yes, I think it helped her. Now, I don't consider myself a medium. Actually, somebody had asked me that recently, and I'm like, I don't think I'm a medium. I don't think I'm psychic. I mean, I think I'm sensitive. I seem to be in tune with stuff. But again, I'm always got that kind of skepticalness about me. Like, I don't know. Yes, I don't know. So it really helped her to hear that. And I kind of feel out patients and their families. Like, even before a patient dies, like expectedly, like, if they're going to be comfort care or hospice, I'll kind of mention to them about what I do. And they're like really interested in, we'll talk about the afterlife. And then a lot of times families will follow up with me. I've had couple families follow up on my Facebook page and say, "Hey, just want you to know that the lights are going crazy and this is acting crazy and the birds are acting crazy and we think it's mom or we think it's dad." So it's interesting to get that follow up, and they're always like so thankful that they could share that part of things with me too. So
absolutely. I mean, I think that's awesome. I think it's awesome. And I think, being who you are, and like I said earlier on, in the profession that you are, I think you're, the things that you tell people probably are, the reception is a little bit better than just, me going like, "Hey, okay." So that's awesome.
When I think too, when I think about it, it would be nice, if we can start feeling more definite about the fact that consciousness survives, like all the work that's being done academically. It'd be nice to be able to teach that and to have medical people know that, hey, we think consciousness survives, and this is the evidence for it, and it's something you could share with your patients, because I think that might really bring a lot of people a lot of peace in their mind. Because right now it's not, to my knowledge, it's not taught in any medical school courses or any residency. But since it's becoming more scientifically accepted in different areas, it'd be nice to be able to have that to share with patients. Even like what I do when I kind of break the ice and say, I think the soul survives, and it seems to really help people. So I think maybe in the future, maybe that'll be more mainstream to say, we're not sure, but there's a lot of evidence to suggest that we don't, just because our body dies doesn't mean that we're done. So.
You ever hear that? I'm sure you have that article, because a lot of people debate it, but they say like when people die, they like lose 3% of their weight or something.
Yeah, 21 grams. 21
yeah,
grams,
something like that. Is that true? Like,
so this guy did it. He was a doc. He did a research. I think it was like he had a limited number of patients, 5, 6 patients, and he weighed them right before they died and then after they died, and supposedly calculated the soul weighs 21 grams. The thing is, it can never be reproduced, and the way he kind of did it wasn't a real scientific. And then he actually repeated the study with dogs, and he couldn't get a difference. So I don't know if it was just the original study was different, or do dogs not have souls? So yeah, but that nobody's reproduced it. So, and the study wasn't the best study. So I don't know, but that it is interesting to think about, but I don't know if I wouldn't put a lot of weight into it. It wasn't scientifically done well.
No.
So
do you have, so you have the Hinsdale house coming up this weekend?
Yeah.
That's exciting. My best friend was just there. She was just there. She has this thing for Hinsdale House, and she actually went there by herself one weekend by accident. There's supposed to be other people there, so she actually spent the night there by herself.
Oh wow.
Yeah. She always, she always has stuff happen. But I said, you've got the biggest paranormal balls of anybody I know, because she's dragging me there next year, she said, because I don't want to go.
Right.
But like for her to stay there overnight, it's like by herself.
Crazy, yeah. I was afraid a couple of years ago. I had an opportunity, and back then I don't know. I just felt really bad. I felt it wasn't right, So I didn't go, and in fact, the people I was going to go with didn't go either. So this year I don't know. I don't feel that dread like I did.
Well, that's good.
So I don't know if it was something about the time then or what it was, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Are you guys going to go live or?
Yeah, we're supposed to do some lives, and I'll make sure I get post evidence. All these investigations, I try to post clips and all that, and I think they're going to go live. I could try to go live. I haven't done it that much, but there is spirit. So it's you can see it on my Haunted M.D page, or you can see it's called Spirit. Their team Spirits, or no, Spirit Guides Paranormal. That's who I'm going to be going up there with. So yeah. These are just local groups that just call you up and say, hey, you want to go with us, or? Yeah, so Spirit Guide, they're actually, so I'm in Charlottesville. They're up in the Culpeper area, which is a little bit north of here. They actually asked me, my very first Paracon I ever did, they had their Paracon up at Brandy Station. What is the church? Fleetwood Church. They had a Paracon, and I was like, they had invited me up there. So I kind of know them from all that. And I did 2 Paracons up there with them. So they've been wanting to get out with me and do investigations. So yeah, they said, hey, we're going up. Do you want to come with us? And I'm like, sure.
So how do you, being, a hospitalist, though, you're busy, I'm sure, do you go your own calls? So how do you find the time? Like, how much time do you dedicate to doing the Haunted M.D side of things you got to be busy.
Right. So my schedule is interesting, although I'll tell you, for this particular event, I asked for time off for this weekend. But typically I work 7 days and I'm off 7 days. So I usually start on Monday and I finish on a Sunday. So, I try to do stuff when I'm on that time off. Sometimes I can do stuff after work. Like one of the teams I work with, Lunar Paranormal, they're up north of here too, but they'll do little quick hits. Like they do 3 or 4 hour investigations. So it's kind of nice because I can get off of work and drive an hour up north and then do an investigation. So some of it I work around work. Some of it I try to do when I'm off. This particular event, I asked for the time off because I knew I had to go to. It's a lot. It's like 7 hours to get there.
Yeah.
And then I do it. I don't know how much time. Definitely my job takes more of my time up, but It's kind of like a busy hobby, the Haunted M.D. thing.
Yeah.
I do a lot of reading more than I probably do like a lot of investigating and stuff. And I do a lot of Google searching and reading and kind of see what's going on out there. I don't know. It's hard to say. I spend, probably, I don't know, maybe like 10, 12 hours a week, maybe doing the haunted stuff, 20 hours a week. It depends. Like, so we did a battlefield the other day and I'm going to be doing Hinsdale House. So I'll spend more time kind of reviewing evidence and things like that. And then before these investigations, I was going to do a little series about the pineal gland, a little couple clips about pineal gland and DMT and all that. So I want to work on that. So I'll be probably a little busier now than usual. So it just kind of depends what's going on. And
that's awesome. So do you have any events coming up, like where you're going to be at any events besides Hinsdale? You have anything else coming up, or you just kind of?
Not right now. I'm supposed to go to the Gettysburg Bash.
Yeah.
On this year. I had signed up for that before COVID, and I was going to be have a booth, and I was going to do a lecture. So I got to still see. I know it's back on. I just got to see if they still want me to talk or not. I was going to talk about being a doctor and ghost hunting.
Yeah, no, I'm friends with Pam and Steve, so I'll yeah, you got to go. It's gonna be so fun.
I'm still on the slate. Yeah, I told him to carry my ticket.
Oh, good. I'll get to meet you.
Yeah. Well, I got that coming up. As far as other events, besides investigations, I don't have too much right now. I think COVID kind of.
Oh yeah, for everybody.
A lot of it down and stuff like that. So.
All right, so plug your stuff one more time, and I mean, do we have any more? Because I could talk all night, but what I'm saying, like, do we have any more patients? Like, I know you told me the two.
Yeah, I can tell you real quick when this is a deathbed vision. So this happened before I was really into investigating a whole lot. This was over at Augusta Health where I used to work. We had a lady with me comfort care. Comfort care, quickly for people who aren't familiar, you decide you're in the hospital, you're sick, you don't want to have a bunch of stuff done. If we don't do a bunch of stuff, you're going to pass. So people decide, hey, I've lived enough, let me pass. So this lady decided to let her pass, and she didn't have a whole lot of family, so we kept checking on her, make sure she wasn't lonely or anything. And I went in to check on her, and she was looking up at the ceiling, and she had these big bright eyes, and this big smile. And it was just very weird, and it kind of caught me off guard. So I walked in, I'm like, "You doing okay?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I go, "What are you?" And I looked up at the ceiling, and I'm like, "What are you seeing? What are you looking at?" And she's like, "Don't you see the angels? They're coming for me." I'm like, "What?" I wish I would have been a little more into it at the time, because it would have been really cool to kind of try to document all that.
Right.
She goes, "But there's angels." And about that time, a nurse came in, and she's like, "How's she doing?" I'm like, "I'm not sure, but she's seeing angels." And then even the nurse kind of looked up, and we both kind of looked at each other. And then I walked out, and the nurse walked out, and I said to the nurse, "I think she's probably going to pass pretty soon if she's seeing stuff like that." And sure enough, she died I think an hour or 2 hours later. But I think she was really seeing something that we couldn't see. And I don't think it was medications. I don't think it was her, low oxygens or anything like that. I think she truly was having a deathbed vision and was seeing, deathbed visions. People see either religious type folks, or they'll see their husband, deceased loved ones come for them to kind of help them to the afterlife. So.
Yeah. And you know what else too? I think you can tell the difference. It's just like, with EVPs or photos or, experiences you have, the difference between a gush of wind and something that goes through you. You know the difference between what a human voice sounds like on a recorder, or even if a human whispers, it sounds different than an EVP, in my opinion. Yeah. And in that moment, her whole makeup was probably different. She was probably at a very relaxed state at that moment as she's seeing this. It's supposed to be a comforting thing. So, there's a difference.
Yeah, she was definitely seeing something, and it was definitely making her feel happy. And like I said, she kind of died peacefully. And it was, even now, it's funny. Certain memories you have, you can always kind of recall them vividly. And thinking about that, I definitely can remember that. And it's funny too, you mentioned about the feeling, we were at that battlefield on Friday, and we walked. So there was a lot of different buildings. There was a battle all around this farmhouse called the Bushong Farm, and the Bushong Farm had several different houses. It was back when slavery was a thing, and they had a summer kitchen, slave quarters. Walked in there, and you got that feeling. You know what I mean? When you walk in, you're like, "Holy cow, something's in here." I haven't had that in a while, even though I've investigated quite a bit. And when I walked in, I was like, you kind of catch your breath, right?
Yeah.
And it turned out that in that cabin, we caught a lot of different things, a lot of different evidence and things happening and stuff. So, but it's funny you mentioned that feeling. You can just tell in a certain area that something's going on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And somebody had mentioned earlier, having an open mind. I mean, you really do have to have an open mind, but you also have to stay grounded,
yes,
and
absolutely. Yeah.
And sometimes you work with people that everything is.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'll just say real quick. I don't know how much time you have, but yeah, I remember when I was at Twisted, we had a bunch of new people join. This is about 4 or 5 years ago, and this one particular person, every little thing was paranormal. It just was like, it was amazing. Any little breeze, it's like no.
Eventually, like I'm the type of person, and anybody that knows me knows this to be true. But I'm the type of person. Eventually, I would have to be like, listen, we need to talk.
Well, eventually she left the team. We didn't keep her on the team that long. She ended up leaving the team, but
you always know. Yeah, and you always know when somebody's gonna make it or break. You know what I mean? Like you always can tell if somebody meshes with your team right away or not, or So.
Well, I think the other thing too, on the flip side of the coin is knowing when you are having a paranormal experience. I remember when I first started investigating, like I would have stuff happen, but I was too afraid to say anything because I didn't want to seem foolish, and I didn't really know for sure. But I remember, we were at my very first big investigation was Hillview Manor up in Pennsylvania and in Newcastle, and I remember something pulling on my clothes. I remember something feeling a touch my hand, but you kind of dismiss it, and and it was my first time, so I didn't want to say anything. But it's funny. So you also got to know that sometimes you are experiencing something paranormal, so you got to kind of know how to filter it out.
So true. And it's hard too, because you don't want to be that person that especially if you're having a lot happen to you, you don't want to be like, I'm feeling this, I feel that, because then you're like, are they taking me serious? Because if I was that person, I'd be like, what the heck are they talking? I would be like, listen.
Especially as a new person too. As a new person, you're like, I don't want to say anything.
Right. No, that's awesome. So do you still talk to the group that you were a part of?
Yeah, we communicate here and there. Not as much. They've kind of gone off in a little different branch. They're doing a lot of public events. They do a lot of, you could pay and get tickets and things like that. So, if we see each other, we talk and all that kind of stuff. But I kind of just been doing more of my own thing.
That's cool. It's better that way, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, like you make your own rules. You can do whatever.
I actually like it. I think for me, it's good. And the other thing is you can investigate when you want and when you don't want to. And
I
can kind of post stuff that I want to post, and I could do it the way I want to do it. And not that I'm anything like that, but there's so many other interesting things that I come across I like to post. And also evidence, when with the other team I was with, they were trying to film everything for a show. So you really couldn't post anything that cool that happened to you because it was all supposed to become part of a show that would eventually come out months later. So I think the nice thing for what I do, say something happens right now, I could post it right now. Or like that battlefield we did, I could post it right then and there. It's like I don't have to wait till a show comes out like 6 months from now or something,
That's
so awesome. I don't mean it negatively at all. I just think I like having the freedom to be able to say, whoa, look what happened to me,
Right.
So
that's awesome. Well, so you have a YouTube, you have a Facebook page.
Yes.
And then a website. So tell us all where we can find
so if you're interested in the history of Haunted M.D, my Facebook page, Haunted M.D, capital H AUNTED M.D. That's where it all started. Okay. So that has all the stuff. I usually, everything that's on my Instagram or YouTube, it's probably on my Facebook. There might be a few things here and there that didn't make it. Then I had that. And then on YouTube, it's Don Molnar, Haunted M.D. So that's on my YouTube. And then Instagram is Haunted M.D. It's small h with a little line underneath. So HAUNTED little line MD on Instagram. So I don't have a website yet, although I've been working on building that too. But those are the main ways to kind of see what I'm doing. And I do try. So on any of my formats, I try to respond to everybody's comments, especially Haunted M.D. So I'm real accessible. If you have questions or comments, I try to reply. Every now and then I might miss something if I'm really busy. But I do try to respond to everybody's comments and questions. And if somebody needs an investigation, if it's local, I can try to do it. If not, I've already referred, like I had people from Illinois contact me, and even over in England contact me about stuff they're having. So I was able to find local teams that could go help these people out. So
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
I try to do those kind of things and whatever I can do, but I'm trying to be real responsive to people when they comment on my pages or have questions and things.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So awesome. I'm so happy you came on. I'm so happy we got to talk. Oh, I don't know if you said this. Listen, this is what happens, right? But you said that you said you started the Haunted M.D thing. Like, what was it that made you start that? I couldn't remember if you said what made you start the Haunted M.D thing.
So going backwards, I kind of thought I wanted to branch out and do a little more than just paranormal investigating. And actually kind of a little more history on that. So I had a friend of mine named Chris Balsone. He actually is the paranormal paramedic. So I had went to so I had went to a paranormal or a Paracon down in St. Albans, and I came across Chris and got to be friends with him. And he was doing a talk about what it's like to talk about being a paramedic and paranormal investigating. Like he was talking about medical causes for paranormal experiences, like you got to think about different drugs, low oxygen, carbon dioxide, all that kind of stuff. So it really got me thinking that it was cool. I like what Chris was doing, getting to talk about going around and doing lectures about medical side and how that pertains to paranormal. So that kind of got me thinking about, there's not many doctors doing this. So maybe it'd be cool if I was starting to do, doing lectures as a doc who ghost hunts, because maybe there's a niche for that. And then, so that was my plan. And I started my Facebook page. And then my Facebook page kind of took on a life of its own, because that kind of became a platform where I could share all these, anything you can think about, anything from medical to ghost hunting to parapsychology to ghost history, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so basically it all started with getting to see Chris doing his thing and kind of wanted to branch out more on my side of things and all that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. And I'm glad that I got to spend some time with you.
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad you had me on.
And I definitely am going to share your pages and your YouTube page. I'll share and definitely follow you. And looking forward to hearing and seeing your experiences with Hinsdale this weekend coming up.
Yeah, I'll keep everybody posted, especially if we get some good clips and all that. And I'm sure they'll be going live and all that too.
Yeah, that would be awesome. So, and then maybe I'll have you on again, and hopefully,
sure.
Hopefully, we'll meet at the bash. You'll be at Gettysburg.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, I'll be glad to be on again and all that. I've been thinking about doing a project, but I haven't quite done it, or I haven't made a lot of positive steps yet about maybe trying to see if I can get permission to be present when somebody dies on a hospice unit or even on a hospice service, and try to see if we could use some of our equipment with permission of the family and all that, to see if we're able, can we register with any of the equipment we use, actually pick up on any energy leaving the body. So
listen, I will send me whatever. And if by chance I am going to die while you're still doing this, you have my permission to use any equipment you want.
All right, man. That sounds good.
I'm serious. You can film it. You can do whatever you got to do.
Cool. You'll make history, man. You'll make history if we find something, right?
Yeah.
Could you imagine if you actually were able to do that? If you had a K2 and SLS and all that stuff, and you actually could document at the time of death a spirit leaving the body, that would be amazing. That'd be groundbreaking stuff right there,
Yeah, for sure. So I'm telling you right now. So and everybody's hearing it. We have it on here. It's saved. If I'm going to
let us know, man. We're there.
Dr. Don, have him come on down.
That's right, man. We'll come. We'll make sure you're comfortable. We'll keep you comfortable, and then we'll watch for some stuff to happen.
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure, really. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yes, and we will definitely hook up again and have fun this weekend. And thank you everybody for joining us. And if anybody has any questions, you can find him on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and that's that.
Sounds good.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
All right. There we go. I don't know. Did I hit the wrong thing?